Well, it sure has gotten busy in the weather department. Yeah. A little bit of rain already here in western Iowa early this morning, and we just had a shower move through a little bit ago. And we're going to see more of that here. Very active pattern all the way through the middle of November with storm after trough diving south into the west and then ejecting into the plains, into the Great Lakes and the Midwest. And so we're just going to see lots of active weather for much of the country for the next couple weeks, and we'll go over with you right now. So, Mike, what day is it, Mike? It's Wednesday, October 30th, 8:41 in the morning in western Iowa, and here's what's going on around the country. We've got cold weather for the western half of the country, and some snow too for the mountains of the Cascades of Oregon and Washington, with winter storm watches and winter weather advisories also into Northern California. Some freeze warnings up there around Yakima in Washington. Some freeze warnings for parts of Arizona, much of New Mexico, into the Texas Oklahoma Panhandle, eastern Colorado, parts of Kansas, southern Nebraska. Freeze warning, freeze warning, freeze warnings, freeze warnings. Utah, it's winter weather advisories for parts of Colorado into Wyoming, along with winter storm warnings for parts of Wyoming. And then we get all the way up into, well, let's do the red flag warning right now for the eastern half of the Texas Panhandle into western Oklahoma, and not too far from Wichita Falls, Texas as well. And then way up there by Duluth, expecting some winter weather with a winter storm watch there. A little bit of fog in South Carolina. South Carolina, where everything sounds like a question in South Carolina. All right, here's your weather spotlight. Yeah, severe weather in Topeka, Kansas is where we're going here, the capital of Kansas. And it's going to get stormy and maybe even tornado-y. Is that a word? Thunderstorms moving from west to east through the day. Main risks for severe weather between 4 and 10 p.m. Storms exiting the area by midnight, damaging winds, most likely the hazard with the storms, but a strong tornado or two cannot be ruled out. So definitely be ready, be prepared to take action and have multiple ways to receive warnings. That's centered around Topeka, but Topeka is not the only place with the severe weather threat today, and we'll go over it in a little bit more detail here in a bit. But you see that big area from North Texas all the way up into even southern Iowa with a chance of severe weather today. Big system moving into the central Rockies, lots of snow, Colorado, Utah, into Wyoming, even northern New Mexico. Even rain mixed with snow into the plains, even parts of western Nebraska into South Dakota. And then, of course, that snow moving into Minnesota as that front presses south and east into the Midwest now. Another system moving into the Pacific Northwest that's going to fall in the heels behind this one. And then there's another one behind that one and another one behind that one. So we went from boring October to active November. A little bit of rain up there in Maine. I love that rhyme. And then scattered storms for Florida. Continuing with our severe weather threat. So an enhanced chance of severe weather for Kansas into Missouri, parts of Oklahoma. Then, that's serious, and that's where your storm chasers are going to be today. Slight risk from Dallas through Oklahoma City, Topeka, Kansas, even Kansas City is part of both the enhanced and the slight. And the slight goes almost up to Des Moines here in Iowa. Then the marginal, even bigger, gets into Wisconsin and down through Austin and into Little Rock. And then your general thunderstorms in the light green. Now, tornado threat looks like this. So 10% chance. And then where you see those lines intersecting like that, that's called a hatched area. And the hatched area is just additional awareness for the possibility of large tornadoes today, as we talked about in that Topeka, Kansas forecast. So we're talking mostly eastern Kansas, a little bit of northern Oklahoma near Tulsa. But even the 5% risk, getting into southern Iowa, more of Missouri, much of eastern Oklahoma, and say, north of Dallas, where my kids grew up. So be careful, because my ex-wife still lives there, and so does my grandson. And then my kids are in Dallas proper and Austin, and even there, at least a 2% chance of some tornadoes for Big D. So be careful today. Be weather aware. Temperature anomaly wise, that cold front pressing into the Midwest now, and so near average where I live in western Iowa, and the front's already through. So this morning's high already happened, and temperatures can be falling through the day. That'll be the story here. The front will wait till this afternoon to get to, say, Des Moines. So the high is going to be later this afternoon and then falling temperatures. And that's going to be the story across the Central Plains as well. Behind that, much below average temperatures with our system that's moved into the middle of the Rockies and the Four Corners. And then ahead of the front is where we have our much above average temperatures into the Great Lakes and further to the east and even southeast. Highs today look like this. Excuse me. So again, we're falling into the 50s today here in western Iowa. 50s and 40s for much of the northern plains, a lot of 40s when you get up into the upper Midwest, but still 80s for the Ohio River Valley, 80s for the southeast, 80s to near 90 Texas, and warm mid 70s all the way into the northeast. You got to get all the way up there into Maine to see 50s. Meanwhile, it's cooler out west, except for the desert southwest still hanging on to some warmth. But remember, they were 100 a few days ago, and it's going to be upper 70s to near 80 for Phoenix, so much better. Low temperatures tomorrow morning. This is where we're talking, your freeze warnings for a lot of areas as that cold air moves into the center part of the country. We won't get to freezing tonight, but we'll be in the 40s. And then 50s as you head further to the east into the Midwest, into the Great Lakes and the Ohio Valley. And down the Mississippi River Valley, even warmer as you head down towards the coast. But 50s for the East Coast, very pleasant, but cold for much of the West, say mid 40s for Portland, Oregon. Tomorrow's surface, as the system continues to move eastward, these are drawn for 8 o'clock tomorrow morning Eastern. So the front will be pressing through the day into the Midwest, into the Great Lakes, into the Mississippi River Valley, and through Texas, and that's where our scattered storms are. And then snow on the north side, so around Duluth, again, we're accumulating snow. Then you get back to the Pacific Northwest, another system moving in. Heavy snow for the Cascades of Oregon and pockets of Washington. Snow into Idaho, Montana, Wyoming as well with that system. And we have a chance of severe weather tomorrow along the Mississippi River, from East Texas, Louisiana, right up the Mississippi into Indiana. So, this is your marginal risk for severe weather, but there's even a tornado threat here. Northern Louisiana, western Mississippi, eastern Arkansas, and near Memphis for Tennessee. So be on the lookout. Just only a 2% risk, but a risk nonetheless. Meanwhile, tomorrow's temperatures cooling off for the plains. Still warm northeast, Great Lakes northeast, and even southeast a little bit above average, but much of the rest of the country near average or even below. Those high temperatures look like this. So we're not supposed to get out of the 40s tomorrow. Tomorrow's Halloween. Yeah. So we're supposed to stay in the 40s here for northern Iowa, western Iowa, and further north it'll be even colder than that for trick-or-treaters. 50s to near 60 for Kansas, 70s when you get down into Texas with some 80s across the southeast, but then back to the 70s Ohio River Valley. So not bad for highs and not bad for trick-or-treaters. The east will be cold, so bundle up if you're trick-or-treating. Portland, Oregon falling into the 40s for trick-or-treat time. A lot of the eastern Oregon, eastern Washington probably falling into the 30s, and definitely the Rockies as well. 48-hour precipitation. A lot of this falling is rain. So still the bullseye, a swath through Iowa into Wisconsin, a little bit of south of Omaha in Nebraska. So could see up to 3 approaching 4 inches of rain for some in this area, and then widespread up to 2, all the way from Louisiana all the way up into Michigan. Pacific Northwest, heavy rain moving in on the coast. Over 2 inches of rainfall for the Oregon coast, Northern California coast, and rain changing to snow for the Cascades of Oregon and a little bit of Washington. And this is where it will fall as snow. So pretty heavy snow for the Cascades of Oregon into southern Washington, approaching a couple feet here for some areas. Same for some of the mountains in eastern Oregon and into Idaho. Lesser amounts as you get, say, near Yellowstone. We're probably, approaching 6 inches here in some areas. Same for Wyoming, central Colorado. And then you look up near Duluth, up in Minnesota, northern Wisconsin. Could be a good half foot of snow for some there. All right, let's get into Friday's forecast. Here's your surface for Friday. Big storm for the Pacific Northwest, rain and snow here, heavy snow in the mountains. Scattered storms, Texas, Oklahoma, Kansas, into Missouri, Arkansas, into the southeast along the front, moving up into West Virginia. A little bit of snow for New York, Vermont, New Hampshire with the cold front there, and parts of Maine. And yes, there's a severe threat for Friday into West Texas and eastern New Mexico down into far West Texas. So it's a marginal risk for severe weather, but bears watching for sure. And I didn't even load up Saturday. West Texas has a chance of severe weather on Saturday. Too far out to get into too much specifics, but be a lookout for this weekend even for severe storms in West Texas as this active pattern continues. All right, anomalous highs for Friday. So we're going to be a little bit above average, Texas, Oklahoma, Kansas, even up into South Dakota, and then along the southeast and the east coast, but otherwise near average or below average for the west. And those highs, still 50s for western Oregon, near average for this time of year, but 40s inland, 30s for higher elevations. We're looking at low 80s for the desert southwest. Still some 80s hanging on into Texas, across the southeast, and Florida, even mid-Atlantic, some 80s. 70s along the coast, but inland, 60s for Pennsylvania, and even 50s for New York State. Same for Ohio, Indiana, Illinois, and gets even colder when you get into Michigan with highs in the 40s here. Same for North Dakota, Minnesota. All right, let's take a look at the GFS. Just so much to cover. All right, we're going to start this morning. Did we start this morning? Yes, we did. Okay, good. We're starting this morning. Here's our rain that already moved through parts of Iowa, and we see some rain showers here, Kansas, Oklahoma, as we go through this morning. We'll see more rain showers busting out in the Central Plains, Southern Plains, into the Midwest. Some snow on the backside, big, strong storm moving into the Pacific Northwest. And as we go through the day today, heavy rain, eastern Nebraska, western Iowa, northern Iowa. This will be moving across the state of Iowa. Our severe weather threat is going to be east and south of the front. So the front's already moved through western Iowa, but expecting some heavy rainfall with some embedded thunderstorms behind the front. Now, ahead of the front, for parts of southern Iowa, into Missouri, into Kansas, into Oklahoma, that's where our severe weather threat is. That's where our tornado threat is. So as we go later into today, this evening, we still see some heavy rainfall from Wisconsin into Minnesota, into Iowa, down into Kansas, Nebraska, and then again, the severe weather south and east of the front. Behind it, just some general light rain for central Nebraska. And then we do see some snow up here in the Rockies and our next system for the Pacific Northwest. All right, that gets us through the day today. This is near midnight tonight as those showers and storms clearing Kansas, as Topeka's National Weather Service told us. But still some heavy rainfall moving into Wisconsin, the Great Lakes, and that front continues to press eastward with showers along it. Then we see snow on the backside coming down for Minnesota. Might get into a little bit of northern Iowa, but Minnesota especially with some even heavy snow here. Meanwhile, rain and snow for the Pacific Northwest. This gets us into Thursday. So tomorrow, Starting the Halloween out with some snow for Minnesota, just not too far north of Minneapolis, St. Paul, all the way up to, again, Duluth. And then as you head into Wisconsin, rain changing to snow for the northern part of the state. Snow moving into eastern Oregon and into the interior of the Northwest. We still see our cold front pressing eastward with some showers along that, but not too bad, just spotty. But it's cooling off in the center part of the country in time for trick-or-treaters and drying out for most of them too. And then as we get into the first, we see another storm moving into the Pacific Northwest. We see more rain. I did it. I didn't mean to do that. All right, here we go. Yep, we're back where we were. So we have more rain moving into Texas. Again, don't forget our severe weather threat for Friday and Saturday in West Texas. You see that happening there. Again, this system ejecting into the plains, into the Midwest, into the Great Lakes. And it's just round after round. And it's been so dry in the center part of the country. This is so welcome. And you know what? I was thinking about this. This is so good. God is so good, and the timing is fine because we had farmers here getting in their corn, getting in their crops, and the dry weather was good for that. And now it's going to rain and rain a lot, and that's fine too because we need the moisture. So this is really good news. All right, where are we at? I almost said I hate that. Don't end a sentence in the word at. Everyone does it, but I try not to. Anyway, Monday, we have another system with snow in the Rockies all the way down into the Four Corners. Another line of showers and storms. This is our fall severe weather season moving into western Iowa, where I live, on the 4th, and just lining up here through Kansas, through Oklahoma, through Texas, moving into Missouri, moving across Iowa, moving into Minnesota and Wisconsin. Heavy rain back into South Dakota, North Dakota with some snow as we get into Election Day, and a line of storms moving through the center part of the country, snow on the backside, and another system for the west on the 5th, and then that dives southward. And then it hangs out in Texas for a few days, some heavy rainfall, and then ejects into the plains again. I mean, this pattern continues all the way. There's another one on the 14th, all the way to the middle of the month, and that's as far as we dare go. Probably went too far, but you see the pattern is just storm diving into the Four Corners, ejecting into the plains, and lots of beneficial rainfall. So our temperatures, because of this pattern, that big trough in the west is going to keep things very cool. On the east would be the opposite. So that's where it's going to stay warm. Precipitation-wise, very good chance of above average rainfall for much of the middle of the country. All right, real quick weekend forecast for you. These are your anomalous temperatures on Saturday. So warming back up in the plains and in the southeast is going to be the warmest above average. But even here, single digits above average, maybe teens above average. Where I live in Iowa, single digits above average. So it's going to be a little bit warmer, but not warm. And then, cold on the West Coast or cool on the West Coast. And then Sunday, a little bit warmer in the plains and into the Midwest, Mississippi River Valley, and cool and colder for the West Coast. So Saturday and then Sunday, you see that sharp cool off for Arizona. High temperatures look like this in Arizona. 70s and near 80 for the desert Southwest. 52, that could be Flagstaff, I think it is, for Arizona. So this is Saturday, warming up in the plains, still 80s in Texas, 70s into Oklahoma, 60s Kansas, Nebraska, 50s Iowa, 50s to near 60 for South Dakota, into southern Minnesota, and 40s further north, but 80s across the southeast, transitioning to 50s and even 40s in the northeast. And then you see how cool it is out west. Sunday, Arizona getting colder, so 45 for Flagstaff and 70s for the desert Southwest, so they'll take that. And much cooler in the Rockies as well, and a little bit warmer for the plains further north too. And that would go for the southeast, even up into the Ohio River Valley and to the mid-Atlantic, warmer temperatures as we get into Sunday. So cooler west, warmer east. Crazy pattern that we have, and I'm happy about that. And as we continue to see storm after storm dive into the west and then eject into the plains with some severe weather too, we will keep you posted right here. Like I said yesterday, I can't wait to get up and to check the weather to see what's going to happen because I get excited about it. And if you're still here after 20 minutes, you probably do too. So thank you for tuning in, and we will see you tomorrow right here on the Weather Mic.